After Owen's car accident, his memory stopped at the year he loved me the most. He forgot about his mistress and the words he once said to me. Does it make sense to stay together when I don't love you anymore? Faced with my indifference and impatience, he cried with red eyes, his voice trembling with despair. Puppy, you said you loved me the most. How could you leave me? 1. After getting the divorce certificate, Owen got in the car without looking back. In the passenger seat was his new assistant, Hazel. 5 years of love, 3 years of marriage, 8 years of youth, and this was the result. I vaguely remembered Owen wrapping his arms around my waist, his voice drawn out, lazily calling me. Puppy, puppy. And now, it's all over. I moved everything back to my old house. When I finished cleaning up, it was already night and the phone rang suddenly. Hello, is this Miss Poppy? Your husband had a car accident, please come to the hospital. Husband. I was stunned for a moment. I suddenly remembered the disgust in Owen's eyes when he asked for a divorce. Puppy, is it interesting to make such a fuss? We haven't loved each other for a long time. I paused. Sorry, you've got the wrong number. After hanging up the phone, I felt refreshed both physically and mentally. I thought that guy must have died in the hospital without being rescued. Unexpectedly, when I opened the door, I saw Owen curled up in the corner with a thick bandage on his head. He must have come here after leaving the hospital. He was awakened by the sound and opened his eyes drowsily. When he saw me, his eyes lit up and he smiled brightly. Puppy, you're awake. I didn't want to disturb your sleep, so I didn't knock on the door. I paused and frowned at him. Owen, what are you playing at? I've agreed to all your requests. I hope you won't bother me anymore. Owen tilted his head. What are you talking about, Poppy? Today is our 3rd anniversary. Have you decided what to eat? The scene in front of me made me confused for a moment. Owen went into my house as if he were familiar with the place, went into the bathroom, opened the second-to-last drawer, and took out an unopened toothbrush. Give me 5 minutes, I'll be right back. This house was rented by Owen and me when we first entered society. We lived in this place for a long time. Later, Owen got a good job and bought a new house. I couldn't bear to part with this small house that held 5 years of memories for the two of us, so I bought it from the landlord. At first, the two of us would come back to visit. Gradually, only I came to clean the room every month. Owen said, The old house is definitely not as good as the new one. You should give up what you should give up. He should have forgotten the layout of the room long ago. But his familiar look was really like Owen 5 years ago. He quickly tittied up and took my hand with a smile. Let's go. Haven't you been saying you want to eat the new hot pot in the food street? I curled my lips and pulled my hand out of his. My taste has changed. I like to eat light food now. He was a little surprised, just as he was about to speak. The phone rang suddenly. Owen took out his phone, looked at the screen that showed Poppy, and looked up at me blankly. I don't remember anyone like that. I smiled and motioned for him to answer. Owen! Where have you been? You should be resting in the hospital after the car accident. I couldn't find you at home, and no one at the company knew where you were. Hazel's voice was very loud. Owen glanced at me, as if afraid that I would misunderstand their relationship. He frowned. Madam, please be careful with your words. First of all, I'm at my girlfriend's house. Secondly, I only have this one home. He hung up the phone. I found it a little funny to see this scene. The cheater forgot the mistakes he had made and solemnly stated his position in front of the victim. What was he trying to hide? The affair was well known. Even Hazel was able to enter the company because of Owen's arrangement. He said he appreciated her learning ability and high-stress resistance. In fact, he liked her face and figure. Thinking of this, I felt sick. I didn't want to play any more games of returning to the past with Owen, so I threw the divorce certificate at Owen. Owen was about to explain to me, but he was stunned when he saw the certificate in his hand. Divorce certificate? He looked up at me. When did we get married? Why don't I have any memory at all? Puppy, even so, I can never divorce you, you know me. In this world, I only love you. Owen's face was full of grievance and impossibility, but he didn't know that he was the culprit. I put all the evidence I had collected of Owen cheating on Hazel in front of him. He flipped through the videos and chat records, his face gradually turning pale. No, it's not like that. I took a deep breath and pushed him away and walked straight out. We got our divorce certificate yesterday. And you lost your memory 5 years ago in a car accident that day. The evidence is there and you answered the call just now. The caller is your mistress, Hazel. So, Owen, don't come to disgust me anymore. 2. I thought Owen had left wisely. But unexpectedly, I saw Hazel and Owen arguing downstairs after work. You said you would divorce her and marry me. Now you're telling me not to interfere with your life. Owen, what do you think of me? Faced with Hazel's dissatisfaction, Owen looked cold and frowned. Have you had enough? If you've had enough, leave. Don't make a scene here. Hazel paused, her eyes widened slightly, full of disbelief. What did you say? I quickened my pace secretly, determined not to get involved in this mess. Unexpectedly, Owen suddenly looked up, and I met his gaze unexpectedly. His eyes lit up with an apology. Puppy, I've made it clear to her. I won't have any more contact with her. I laughed bitterly, thinking Owen was naively cute. Owen couldn't think that as long as he cut ties with Hazel, I would pretend nothing happened and spend a sweet world with him. Seeing that I was about to leave, Owen hurriedly called out. Puppy! I lost 5 years of my memory, and all your reactions to me are like a lover who suddenly despises you overnight. I don't know how we ended up like this. But no matter how much you hate me now, you should remember us 5 years ago. That's when we loved each other the most. I stopped and looked back at him. Owen's eyes were red, and his voice trembled slightly. It was as if he was afraid that I would leave him alone. Puppy, don't leave me. He lowered his head. Hazel's face turned pale behind him. She staggered back a few steps and left hurriedly. I stood there and looked at him quietly. Owen, I won't give someone a second chance to hurt me. But I'm not him, Poppy, I'm your Owen. Owen interrupted me, eager to prove it. He pointed at his injured forehead. Look, I'm not him anymore. I'm back. Let's be good together. He wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. The last time he cried was during our graduation from university. We had no money to pay for heating, and we were almost frozen into ice cubes in the rented house. Owen turned his back on me rarely, and his shoulders trembled slightly. When I hugged him, I realized he was crying like a child. It's all my fault, I made you suffer so much. I swear, I will be good to you for the rest of my life. At that time, Owen had nothing, and all he could offer was his sincere love. Owen's image gradually overlapped with the one 5 years ago. The suppressed soreness in my heart burst out suddenly. It filled my whole chest. I lowered my eyes and avoided his gaze. When your injury is healed, leave immediately. Owen's eyes lit up, full of joy. He subconsciously wanted to hug me, but he just clenched the corner of his clothes after reacting. Thank you, Poppy. I won't let you down. Owen's behavior, even his thinking logic and some small actions, perfectly overlapped with the him 5 years ago. He was the Owen who held me in the palm of his hand 5 years ago and couldn't wait to declare his love to the world. Or was he the Owen who was disgusted and impatient with me and had his heart set on another woman? This question has been bothering me since we met. I want to find an answer. 3. I curled up on the sofa, eating grapes and watching a movie, ignoring Owen as he mopped the floor, wiped the table, and passed me fruit. Baby, just spit the seeds into my palm, I'll throw them away. Owen looked natural, as if it were second nature to him. I didn't hesitate to spit a handful into his hand. Seeing me like this, he didn't get angry at all, but smiled indulgently instead. Eat slowly, I bought a lot. Owen has a germ phobia. I only found out after we got married. At that time, I even showed off to my friends, saying that even though he had a germ phobia, he was willing to catch the fruit pits I spit out with his hands. Didn't this just prove that I was the most important person in his life? I fantasized about a happy life for both of us until old age. And this ridiculous fantasy was shattered on an ordinary night. Owen was chatting with someone on his phone, and although it was the same action as usual, he flew into a rage. "Puppy, why do you have to spit it into my palm when the trash can is right next to you? Don't you find it disgusting?" That was the first time I saw him like that. After a brief daze, I carefully picked up the fruit pit and threw it into the trash can. He got up and went to the bathroom, washing his hands over and over again. He kept rubbing his palms with soap until they turned red before stopping. Knowing that I was at fault, I wanted to apologize. But all I got was his back. He seemed to have forgotten. It was a habit he had helped me develop. I looked at Owen. He skillfully threw the grape seeds into the trash can and handed me a plate of washed grapes. The doorbell rang and Owen went to answer it. When he came back, he was holding a large bouquet of flowers. A little embarrassed, he blushed slightly when he saw my confusion. "Puppy, it's our 3rd anniversary, and I bought your favorite gardenias." "Gardenias?" I lowered my eyes. Its flower language is eternal love. In the past, no one would believe that Owen, who loved me so much, would cheat. And even for a mistress, he would argue with me for a divorce. We should be by the sea now, blowing the sea breeze. Walking slowly on the soft sand, the two of us make plans for the next anniversary trip. Eternal love only has a shelf life of 3 years. How absurd and ridiculous. I didn't speak for a long time, and Owen, who was full of joy, noticed something was wrong at this moment, and slowly lowered his eyelids, hiding the loneliness in them. "Can't you forgive me for what I did before?" But soon, he regained his spirits. "I will definitely make you recognize me." Faced with my indifference, Owen became more and more persistent. 7 days a week of different meals and flowers everywhere in the room. I felt uncomfortable, so I left the house before 7 every day and didn't come back until 11 at night. Unexpectedly, he was so sleepy that his eyes couldn't even open, but he insisted on waiting for me to come back with a bandage on his head. He was determined to prove to me that his love was absolutely loyal. Day by day, it was soon time for Owen's follow-up checkup. The doctor was shocked to see Owen's dark circles. I told the patient to rest well. "What's going on?" I looked away a little guilty, and Owen laughed it off. "It's okay, I feel like I've recovered very well." The doctor stared at him suspiciously and finally sighed. "The wound has healed almost completely, and you should be able to recover your memory soon." As soon as these words were spoken, the office fell into a strange silence. The smile on Owen's face froze. I thanked him, took the diagnosis report and left first. Owen followed me. "Puppy, wait for me." His voice annoyed me. I stopped and turned to look at him. "Aren't you tired of causing trouble?" Sadness flashed in his eyes, and he wanted to explain. Just then, Hazel suddenly appeared behind Owen. "Owen?" Owen was a little stunned. He looked at me, then turned to look at Hazel. "Didn't I say that we have nothing to do with each other anymore? I don't care if you have no memory, it's useless for you to keep pestering me." Hazel interrupted. "I'm pregnant." Owen's voice stopped abruptly. His pupils shrank slightly, and he focused his gaze on her slightly bulging belly. No matter how much he deceived himself, the facts were there. He finally realized that it was too late. Everything had happened. Boredom, betrayal, cheating, divorce. Words are so pale and powerless in the face of facts. I saw Owen's pale face. The ridiculous fantasy he had always had in his heart of returning to the past was finally shattered. I turned around and continued walking. This time he didn't catch up. 4. Owen didn't come home. Lying in bed, I felt more relieved than anything else. It was just that seeing the bouquet of roses withering on the bedside table, my heart couldn't help but ache. Owen kept calling, and I just watched the phone screen light up and darken, over and over again. He seemed determined to make me answer. Annoyed by the noise, I simply took out the SIM card. Even if I answered, what could we talk about? Talk about Hazel, or talk about the child in Hazel's belly? Owen and I had nothing to talk about. Poppy! I widened my eyes slightly, and then I saw Owen's figure appearing downstairs outside the window. He said something. But suddenly, there was a thunderclap in the sky, blurring his words. Cut off point, cut off point. 3 or 5 raindrops hit the window, and Owen stubbornly stood in the same spot, letting the rain drench him. I watched Owen in silence. He would recover his memory eventually. What should I do when that time comes? The same hurt, once was enough. While my mind was struggling and hesitating, the rain got heavier. Owen stood in the rain, motionless. Before my brain could persuade me, my body moved first. I was wearing my pajamas and didn't even bother to change my shoes. I ran downstairs in a hurry. There was another thunderclap. My thoughts were in a mess, but my feet didn't stop. Finally, I saw Owen in the rain with red eyes. He was pale from the cold, but even so, he still blinked his bright eyes at me with a bright smile as usual. Poppy. His voice trembled as he moved towards me. I held up my umbrella and walked quickly to Owen's side. He leaned on me weakly. I'm sorry, Poppy, you must think I'm disgusting now. I'm so stupid, I thought I could make you like me again if I just tried harder. Now it seems that if I stay by your side, it will bring you more discomfort and disgust. Owen was shivering all over, and I subconsciously held his hand. He shrank his hand back as if he had been scalded. I'm so dirty. I was stunned when I heard that, and the vague idea in my mind suddenly became extremely clear. The Owen in front of me was my Owen. He was the Owen who curled up in a ball and cried in self-blame because he couldn't give me a better life. He was the Owen who was always cheerful and tried his best to make me smile more. He was the Owen whose eyes were full of me, and who just wanted to be with me. It was him, it was him. At this moment, Owen took a deep breath, as if he had finally made up his mind. He closed his eyes, and tears mixed with rain flowed down. I'm sorry. I won't bother you anymore. I heard him say. Suddenly, all I could hear was the patter of rain. Owen turned around and walked into the rain. I wanted to chase after him, but my feet were rooted to the ground, unable to move. That's enough, I told myself, that's enough, we can still maintain a bit of dignity for each other. What's the point of chasing after him? I couldn't forget the hurt he had caused me, but I couldn't bear to watch Owen walk in the rain with a weak body. Owen staggered, and then fell heavily to the ground. Before I could run over, a cry came out first. Owen! Hazel ran over hurriedly and helped him up. I stopped and took a deep breath, then watched as Owen got into the car. Before getting in the car, Hazel glanced at me. After they left, I saw something shining on the ground. When I walked closer, I realized it was a ring. Unlike the ring with various diamonds later, this one was a plain band. At that time, we didn't have extra money, so we couldn't afford a diamond ring. But he didn't want me to feel wronged, so Owen used his remaining money to make a plain band. Owen said, I will buy you many rings in the future, one on each finger. How does that sound? I smiled and nodded, but the corners of his eyes turned red. Poppy! Poppy! He murmured my name, but said nothing. Outside the window, the storm was raging, and we hugged each other in the leaky hut. I rested my forehead against his. It's okay. Everything will be fine. Tears blurred my vision, and I wiped them away and wiped the ring dry and put it in my pocket. We loved each other unconditionally, and we saw each other as the only one. Happiness was our goal. No matter what the future holds, no matter how rich or poor. As long as we accompany each other, we will have nothing to fear. But we forgot that time is the biggest variable. Just like 5 years ago, Owen hugged me and cried, saying he would never betray me. 5 years later, Hazel stopped him at the hospital and said she was pregnant. All the burning love had turned to ashes. Only Owen, whose life was disrupted by a car accident, was trapped in the past. Owen without a past or a future. Living a confused and helpless life in the chaotic reality. Enduring the injustice and malice towards him. 5. Owen was hospitalized again after his old injury and getting caught in the rain. I heard from a friend that Owen had been in a coma for 2 days with a high fever. Just when the doctor was helpless and told Hazel to be prepared, Owen woke up. Upon hearing this news, I secretly went to the hospital to see what he looked like now. Owen was sitting up, head bowed, thinking about something. After seeing that he was okay, I planned to sneak away. But Owen suddenly looked up as if he had telepathy and met my gaze. Those eyes were calm and steady. I recognized immediately that it wasn't my Owen. He had recovered his memory. Poppy. Owen spoke. Not Poppy. At the same time, my heart tightened, and even my breathing became difficult. I remember now. My mind went blank. I only knew that Owen was talking, but I couldn't understand what he was saying. In my mind was Owen crying and blaming himself, and the trembling hand that retracted. Why does the sky always play such a joke on me? When I made a firm choice, it told me the answer was wrong. When I realized it, it told me it was too late. I have the memories of the time we spent together. Owen took a deep breath, and he subconsciously reached for his pocket, but put his hand back when he found that the cigarette case he always carried was missing. This was a habit he developed later. It reminds me of the past. And I have re-examined our relationship. I don't know if it's because of amnesia, but since I woke up, I've been feeling a sense of soreness in my heart, and your face has been haunting me. But whenever I think of you, my heart starts to ache. I looked at Owen's calm face and stood there without speaking. After years of ups and downs, Owen learned to hide his emotions, learned to suppress his feelings and face the outside world with a calm attitude. The naivety in him had completely disappeared. No longer to be seen. After recovering my memory, I've been thinking about everything in the past. At that time, the two of us could only afford a small apartment, and the bed was so small that we couldn't even stretch our legs. We would often have power outages, and it would even leak during rainy days. It was in such a broken house that you and I lived. You always told me, "It doesn't matter, you are so excellent, you will definitely succeed one day." At that time, I only had one thought, to take you to live in a big house and let you live a happy life. Owen looked out the window and sighed. The wish at that time was so simple. As long as he could be happy, he would pay any price. But when did people start to change? I don't know. Owen turned to look at me, and I only then saw the faint tears in his eyes. "Puppy, I think I regret it," I heard him say. He forced a smile, and tears slid down the corner of his eyes. "Let's start over, okay? Just pretend nothing happened." I looked at him and asked only one question. "What's in the second to last drawer in the bathroom?" Owen paused and didn't answer for a long time. For a moment, the room was dead silent. "I'm serious about getting back together with you." He didn't know. He didn't know what was in the second to last drawer in the bathroom. He also didn't know how much I loved him before. Now, saying these words, it was just because he felt that I was tasteless and a pity to discard, or maybe it was a momentary conscience discovery, a little pity. I clenched my palm tightly, trying hard to hold back my tears. "Owen, we're divorced. Remember, you were the one who initiated it." Holding Hazel, as if you were trying to get away from a disgusting insect, you left me decisively and quickly. Instead of wanting to reconcile with me because of a ridiculous memory loss, you should think about how to introduce your unborn child to your mother. I wanted to say more, but Owen suddenly interrupted. "Hazel is not pregnant. She lied to you." Like a bolt from the blue, I was stunned. I couldn't say a word. Not pregnant. She's not pregnant. If Hazel wasn't pregnant, then what was Owen's struggle and hesitation about? His disgust for himself, his unwillingness to delay my life while feeling sad, and his apology to me in the rain. What was all that for? He said, "I'm so dirty, Poppy." His voice trembled, with a tone of repentance. The steps I couldn't catch up with, the farewell I couldn't say. Owen continued. "If you don't believe me, you can go to my office now to see that fake test report." Enough! I couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, "Do you think it's fun to play with me like this? You've already cheated, and people like you should know better. You should just disappear completely. Why do you have to keep pestering me? I will never forgive you. Go to hell with your regrets." What was Owen thinking when he was standing in the rain, holding the forgotten plain band? It was a ring he bought with all his money, but after marriage, it became garbage that was casually thrown in a corner. With a heart full of sincerity, he found that things were beyond his control. He reluctantly denied his feelings, just wanting to use the ring as a trace of their love. But even this wish, heaven was reluctant to fulfill for him, causing him to lose the ring he had always longed for in the end. And now, Owen, who had recovered his memory, denied the determination of Owen that night with a light and casual regret. It was so unfair. I took the ring out of my pocket and threw it at him hard, as if I wanted to return all the grievances and unwillingness in my heart, along with Owen's sincere love 5 years ago. Now he has not only let me down, but he has also let down his former self. The ring hit his face and fell into his palm. Owen stared blankly at the ring, holding it tightly. I turned around and left without looking back. The Owen I cherished has disappeared. Rather than cleaning up the mess and pretending to get back together, I want to leave this place and never come back. 6. I applied to my boss to transfer to a branch office 1,000 kilometers away from the city. My boss was surprised at my move and advised me to stay here and develop well. I explained a lot, saying that I was doing this to familiarize myself with the work so that I could fly abroad to negotiate a cooperation at the end of the year, and she finally agreed to my application. I packed my bags overnight and booked the earliest flight. Even my friends were surprised at how fast I was. She didn't know that I knew every corner of this city where I had lived for 8 years. When I saw the restaurant on the corner, I thought of the joy and curiosity I felt when I first entered a high-end restaurant with Owen. When I passed by the wedding dress shop, I remembered Owen's smile when we were choosing a wedding dress. Even the old man at the fruit stand downstairs would ask why he hadn't seen Owen recently. Everyone in this city was reminding me of the bits and pieces of Owen and me. If Owen 5 years ago were standing here, he would definitely be disappointed in himself and push me away. "Puppy, don't let these messy things hold you back. You deserve better." While waiting at the airport, I saw Owen, who should have been in the hospital for an infusion. His face was pale, and for the first time, he showed helplessness and panic when I left. "Puppy, no, Puppy. Don't go, okay? I've made it clear to Hazel. I've canceled the engagement, cut off the relationship, and I'll never have anything to do with her again. Just forgive me this once." Tears welled up in his eyes. "Please." I stood aside and watched him quietly. The plain band on the ring finger of his left hand shone under the light, representing our 3 years together. "Owen." I whispered his name. He stopped and his eyes were still filled with unshed tears. "Puppy, I knew you wouldn't. I don't know if you still remember, in our 7th year together, you left me and went to accompany Hazel who you had just met." With each word I said, his face turned paler. To commemorate our 7th year together, I put on full makeup and made an appointment with Owen at a high-end restaurant. Unexpectedly, Owen arrived late and didn't even bother to prepare a gift. He said, "We've been husband and wife for so long, there's no need to do all that." During the meal, Owen kept checking his phone. Later, I don't know who called him, and he left in a hurry without explaining to me. I ate quietly alone, paid the bill, and went home. Taking off my long dress and putting on my pajamas, I tidied up the messy house. That night, Owen didn't come back until 3 in the morning. When I asked, he was like a cat with its tail stepped on. "Puppy, I work hard every day, and you're here suspecting me of seeing other people. Do you think money is so easy to earn? I'm doing this for you." His sudden loss of control not only scared me, but also scared himself. After regaining his composure, Owen apologized to me again. Later, the matter was left unresolved. Until the truth came out, I realized that at that time, he was busy comforting Hazel, who was unwilling to be a mistress. Owen mumbled, "It's not like that, Poppy, listen to me. I was just impulsive at that time. I didn't mean for that to happen." I smiled, but resolutely interrupted him. "Owen, isn't it too late for you to say these things now that things have developed to this point? You had countless opportunities to turn back, maybe the first time Hazel pretended to be drunk and leaned on your shoulder, or maybe when she invited you upstairs to sit down, or when she took off her clothes on the pretext of being hot. You clearly had so many chances to refuse. But you didn't. Could it be that by chance, you made a mistake every time, and every time you were unconscious?" Owen staggered back a few steps. He looked at me straight in the eye and finally realized my determination. He realized how ridiculous it was to ask for a reunion in the hospital. I turned around and heard him calling my name behind me. Maybe he wanted to apologize, or maybe he wanted to explain again. But I didn't look back. Even my footsteps didn't stop for a moment. We once regarded each other as the only one, and we tried our best to give each other the best love within our limited ability, just to see the smile on each other's face. But people always change. The passionate and lifelong love that Poppy and Owen at the age of 23 longed for. It ended with the divorce agreement between Owen and Poppy at the age of 28. It is true that we loved each other, and it is also true that we betrayed and abandoned each other later. Things have developed to this point, and it cannot be separated from the choices of both of us. It's too late to talk about regret. Expired milk should be discarded in time, and expired love should be abandoned in time. We should have ended it a long time ago. Postscript. The news that Owen divorced Poppy for Hazel was soon known to their former friends. The first person to come to his door was Jack. At that time, Owen was working in the office, and Jack rushed in front of him, punching him in the face. Owen was unprepared and was hit so hard that his eyes were blurred and his nose was bleeding. "Cheating with your secretary, you deserve it. Since you don't cherish her, why didn't you let her go?" Jack's roar was about to pierce his eardrums, and the employees who came and went looked inside through the door gap curiously. Owen remembered. Jack had come to him. At that time, Jack had a successful career and stood in front of Owen's small broken house and talked to him with conditions. "Owen, you can't give Poppy a better life. Why are you wasting her time? Will you be satisfied watching Poppy waste her youth and stay with you in this tiny house?" Jack's words pierced Owen's self-esteem like a sharp knife. Owen wanted to refute, but looking at the simple furniture, he couldn't say anything. Jack looked at him. "I will find Poppy." Jack almost wrote his desire to usurp the throne on his face. After he left, Owen stood there motionless. Compared to liking, Jack's love was no less than Owen's. Compared to his career, Jack was obviously able to give Poppy a better life. What should he do? Owen's mind was in a mess. After a long time, Owen felt that Jack had already reached Poppy's company. He suddenly thought that no matter what Poppy's choice was, he would respect her will. People have an instinct to avoid harm, and it was because he couldn't give Poppy the life she wanted that he was abandoned. That day, Poppy came back later than usual. Owen thought she must be preparing how to mention breaking up more gracefully. When Poppy opened the door, Owen's heart was in his throat. "I agree." As soon as the words came out, tears welled up in his eyes. Poppy was a little surprised by his sudden words, and quickly supported his shoulders. "What's wrong?" Poppy looked at him with a serious expression. Owen saw her carrying the walnut cake that was steaming hot. It was the walnut cake shop that Owen liked. There were many customers in that shop, and it would take a long time to wait in line. Poppy must have bought the walnut cake for him, which was why she came back late. It wasn't because of Jack, nor was it because of worrying about breaking up. Owen wiped away his tears and said it was nothing with a smile. Poppy complained to him about her colleagues as usual. Lying in bed, Poppy held his face and blinked. "Owen, you are so excellent. One day, everyone in the world will envy us." Owen heard his heart beating loudly. The heartbeat sounded in his ears again. Owen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Jack. Even though he had never been with Poppy, and hadn't even seen Poppy in years, his eyes welled up with tears at that moment, as if he were the one who had been wronged. "How dare you deserve Poppy's love?" Jack grabbed his collar and punched him again. He didn't fight back, letting Jack beat him. Did Poppy feel the same way back then? On the day the affair was exposed, Owen was with Hazel. It had been 2 hours since he saw the photos and videos Poppy sent. Poppy called, her voice calm, revealing no emotion. She said, "Let's get a divorce." From the decision to divorce to their separation, Poppy didn't shed a single tear. There were no arguments, no pleas. Faced with all this, Owen couldn't say what he was feeling. He had thought that Poppy had decided to divorce so readily because, like him, she was also tired of their relationship. But wasn't it? It turned out that her love had been burning fiercely for 8 years. It turned out that only Owen had changed. Jack let go of him, and Owen fell to the ground, looking up at him. All he heard was Jack saying the same thing as before. "I'll find her. I'll follow in her footsteps and go to the city where she is." Jack hadn't changed, Poppy hadn't changed, only he had changed. Owen's numb heart suddenly tightened. "She won't choose you. She never will, and she never will." Why, when he had it, he thought it was nothing special, but when he lost it, he felt so miserable. Clearly, it was because he was tired of the relationship that he became interested in Hazel, so why, when he heard that someone wanted to be with Poppy, did the thought arise in his heart? "Don't take her away from me." Jack looked down at him and said, "I don't care. If Poppy doesn't want to, I can even disappear from her sight forever. It's her choice to accept or reject, and I'll just follow the final answer." Jack's eyes were full of determination, and those eyes gradually overlapped with Poppy's eyes on a night many years ago. "It's okay, Owen, take your time, everything will be fine. It's her choice to accept or reject, and I'll just follow the final answer." Owen finally understood the complex emotions contained in that gaze. It was love. Jack loved Poppy steadfastly. And Owen had also had that love. Realizing this, overwhelming regret flooded Owen's heart. He finally understood how ridiculous his actions had been. He knelt on the ground and tears streamed down his face uncontrollably. Jack turned and walked away without looking back. "Don't take her away from me. Don't you dare get near her. Stop!" Owen roared, his body trembling as he crawled forward. "What took you so long?" Jack stopped and gave him a look. "Go to hell with your regrets.